What's going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the best staff and dagger build in Throne and Liberty. This setup will focus on both of these weapon strengths, which will give us the highest single target DPS in the game. When you get the full gear, our staff will provide us with up to 200 extra heavy attack chance and 150 extra skill damage boost. And because of our high cooldowns, we will spec into cooldown reduction, because without it we will have downtime, which could decrease our damage. So overall, if you want to use the highest damage build in the game, then here it is. So let's move over to the gear, and I will split this section into 3 parts. In the next 30 seconds I will cover the leveling gear, so what you want to use until level 50. Then in the second part, what gear should you get as early level 50 character. And then in the final part, we will take a closer look at our fully completed endgame build and how it will work. As getting to level 50 just takes few hours, so I won't spend too much time in here. In general, everyone starts with green uncommon gear, then at some point switches it out to the blue rare gear. And finally, in the endgame, they fully get their epic purple gear. Depending on how fast you level and what specific activities you do, this progression will vary from player to player. But the most important thing you need to keep in mind is that wearing green gear while leveling is completely fine. As you progress further into the game, you will get more gear with additional stats, which will boost our overall damage, which is exactly what you want to focus on. It is also more costly to use traits on them, so don't worry about it. Just simply keep leveling and slowly transition to the blue gear, and focus on the same stats that I will mention in the next part. So next up we have the fresh level 50 setup. For the staff we have the elite resistance, with traits like the hit, heavy attack chance and critical hit. Then for dagger we have the Licorious Thorny Edge, with traits like the hit, critical hit and heavy attack chance. You can get the crafting recipe from Paola's Dimension chest, Precious Weapon Selection chest, or as a reward from the Cave of Destruction Conquest. Next we have Deadly Fighter's Visor, with ranged evasion, mana regen and melee evasion. Then we have the Archpriest Devotion, with mana regen, skill damage resistance and debuff duration. You can get this item crafting recipe from the Licorious Equipment chest, Precious Accessories and Cloak Selection chests, from the Cave of Destruction Conquest, or from the Precious Blessing pouch. Next we have the Miracle of Mother Nature clothing, with traits like the mana regen, buff duration and melee evasion. You can get the crafting recipe from the Tax Delivery chest, Precious Blessing pouch, Precious Equipment chest, Kirtaki's Armor Selection chest, or from the Precious Top Selection chest. Then we have the Dark Destruction Iron gloves, with attack speed, mana regen and melee evasion. Next we have the Deadly Barrier Chain Gaiters with mana regen, melee evasion and ranged evasion. Next we have the Darkness Distorted Plate Boots with mana regen, melee evasion and ranged evasion. Then we have the Scales of Time Necklace with mana regen, skill damage boost and buff duration. Next up we have the Spectre's Frost Bracers with skill damage resistance, debuff duration and mana regen. You can get the crafting recipe from the Tobluk's Equipment chest, Precious Accessory chest, then from the Thailand Island Conquest reward, or from the Precious Blessing pouches and the Bracelet Selection chests. Then we have the Lethal Fortune Ring with traits like the Max Health, skill damage boost and buff duration. Next we have the Eternal Ring of Dimension with Max Health, skill damage boost and buff duration. You can get the crafting recipe only from the Precious Epic Accessory Selection chest. And finally we have the Elite Tracker's Belt with skill damage resistance, mana regen and debuff duration. And now, last but not the least, we have come to the endgame setup, and you're feel free to click the link in the description to check it out on the website. Just don't forget that this will take some time to farm, but all of this can be collected solo. So before you get the best of the best items, just use the previous mid-game setup and then start slowly transitioning to this fully completed gear. So first of all, for the staff we have the Embracer staff with traits like the hit, critical hit and heavy attack chance. Then for resonance trait we have the cooldown speed, and for runes on the attack we have the hit. Then on support the skill damage resistance, and on defense the ranged endurance. You can get the crafting recipe from the Precious Blessing pouches, Precious Equipment chests, and from the Meraki's Dimensional Circle chest. Next we have the Licorious Thorny Edge with hit, critical hit or heavy attack chance. Then for resonance trait we have the cooldown speed, and for runes on the attack we have the heavy attack chance. Then on defense the ranged endurance, and on support the skill damage resistance. You can get this item from the Paola's Dimension chest, Precious Weapon Selection chests, or from the Cave of Destruction Conquest reward. Next we have the Heavenly Arbiter Mask with melee evasion, mana regen and cooldown speed. And for resonance trait we have the max health. You can get the crafting recipe from the Duke's Magnus chest, then from the Precious Headgear Selection chests, from the Precious Blessing pouches, or as a reward from the Butcher's Canyon Conquest. Then for cloak we have the Archpriest Devotion, with traits like the skill damage resistance, debuff duration and mana regen. Then for resonance trait we have the health, and as we have the health on all of our gear pieces, so I will stop mentioning it, but don't forget to keep on using it. And you can get the crafting recipe from the Licorious Equipment chest, then from the Precious Cloak and Accessory chests, then from the Precious Blessing pouches, and as a reward from the Cave of Destruction Conquest. Then for chest we have the Reaper's Concealing Shroud with mana regen, buff duration and ranged evasion. You can get this item from the Kertaki's Armor chest, Precious Top Selection chest, or as a reward from the Butcher's Canyon and Island of Terror conquests. Next we have the General Frenzy Gloves with attack speed, max health and melee evasion. You can get the crafting recipe from the Precious Blessing and Equipment pouches, as well from the Shakaruk's Armor chest. Next we have the Grim Judicator Pants with ranged evasion, magic evasion and debuff duration. You can get the crafting recipe from the Precious Equipment chest and from the Precious Blessing pouches. Then we have the Reaper Footsteps with move speed, ranged evasion and magic evasion. You can get the crafting recipe from the Precious Equipment chests and pouches. Then from the Gaitan's Armor selection, as well as the reward from the Carmine Rage Island Conquest. Then for necklace we have the Abyss Conquerors with max health, skill damage boost and buff duration. And for runes on the attack we have the hit. Then on defense we have the ranged endurance, and on support the Amitoi heal. You can get it from the Precious Equipment and Accessory chests, as well as from the Groved Support chest at level 40. Next we have the Spectre's Frost Bracers, with traits like the skill damage resistance, mana regen and debuff duration. And for runes on the attack, we have the heavy attack chance. Then on defense, the melee endurance, and on support, the stun resistance. You can get the crafting recipe from the Toblok's chests, Precious Bracelet and Accessory chests, as well from the Blessing pouches, and as a reward from the Tyrant's Island Conquest. Next we have the Eternal Ring of Dimension, with traits like the skill damage boost, buff duration and max health. Then for runes on the attack, we have the ranged critical hit, on defense the magic evasion, and on the support the incoming heal. And you can get it from only the Precious Epic Accessory chests. Next we have the Uncheatable Gold Ring, with max health, skill damage boost and buff duration. Then for runes on the attack we have the ranged critical hit, then on defense the max health, and on support the Amitoi heal. You can get the crafting recipe from the Precious Blessing pouches and from the Precious Equipment chests. And finally for the last piece we have the Butcher's Belt with skill damage resistance, max health and debuff duration. Then for runes on the attack we have the hit, then on defense we have the melee heavy attack evasion, and on support the stun resistance. You can get the crafting recipe from the Duke's Magna chest, then from Precious Belt and Accessory chests, or as a reward from the Butcher's Canyon Conquest. Next up we have the attributes, and as you can see here, the white numbers are the ones that we start from the beginning with, then the blue numbers are the ones that I've allocated manually, and then the green points are the ones we get from our gear. Overall we have 49 stat points to distribute however we want, and gear gives additional stat points that you cannot change. It is free to reset the stat points at any time, so that you can respec whenever you need to. So our first goal in the mid game is to reach 50 strength, because this will give us 100 heavy attack chance, and as in PVE we care mainly about damage, so this will maximize our DPS output. Then next we want to hit 40 perception. This will give us 5% extra buff duration. Then for our third goal we want to get to 50 wisdom, or extra 5% cooldown speed. As I mentioned at the start, we don't want any skill downtimes, so stacking as much cooldown reduction is very important. And finally, in the endgame, with purple gear and respecking, we want to reach 50 strength, about 30 dexterity, 50 wisdom and 40 perception. All of these numbers will vary depending on your gear and level. At the beginning, just follow the previous 3 goals I said, and then slowly keep getting more points. And this is how it should look like in the max tier 1 gear. Next we have our skills, and for defense we want to get the Block Blade, and for active skills get the Serial Fire Bombs, Inferno Wave, Fireball Barrage, Infernal Meteor, Inject Venom, High Focus, Cleaving Moonlight, Judgment Lightning, Ice Spear, Ankle Strike, Brutal Incision and Inner Peace. And lastly, for few skills I need to explain them a bit further. So as you can see from the gameplay, I don't have all of these same skill icons on my bar. It is because the skill icons will change, depending on the specific skill specialization you use. So Serial Fire Bombs will turn into the Focused Fire Bombs. Then Infernal Meteor will turn into the Hellfire Rain. Then Inject Venom turns into the Lightning Infusion. Then the Ice Spear will turn into the Ice Spear Bombardment. And Brutal Incision will turn into the Thunderclouds Bombing. And then on the other hand, for passive skills, we have selected the Assassin's Instincts, Destructive Fang, Wrathful Edge, Aestheticism, Mana Amp, Flame Condensation, Forbidden Sanctuary and the Murderous Energy. Next, we will quickly look into the skill priority, and we want to use quality and rare marined ore to craft quality and rare passive skill and active skill growth books. I recommend to prioritize getting all of these skills to blue first before getting them to purple, and then for the rest of your skills, they're not as important, so just keep upgrading them as you progress through the game. So for passive skills, the main priority is Wrathful Edge, Assassin's Instincts, Forbidden Sanctuary, Destructive Fang, and then the rest active skills like the Brutal Incision, Cleaving Moonlight and the Judgment Lightning. Next we have our skill specialization, which will change, modify and upgrade our skills. So for Ankle Strike we get the offhand weapon activation, then for Infernal Meteor don't get anything, then in the Ice Spear get the Ice Spear Bombardment and damage, then for Inner Peace don't get anything, then for Inject Venom get the Lightning Infusion and cooldown, then on Fireball Barrage get the Fireball Frenzy, then for Judgment Lightning don't get anything, then for Brutal Incision select the Thunderclouds Bombing and cooldown. Then for Inferno Wave get the cooldown, consecutive use and burning. And on Serial Fire Bombs get the Focused Fire Bombs and able to move. For some reason this website was bugged and it would not show the specializations for Cleaving Moonlight and High Focus. So for Cleaving Moonlight get the consecutive use and attack speed. And for High Focus select the base damage boost. So next up we have the Weapon Mastery, and here is the setup for the staff. So first off we start at the middle and select everything from the Radiant Composure until the Mana Intensification, and then we go down to the bottom and get the entire bottom row. And then for daggers we start with the middle and get Silent Dash, melee hit and offhand weapon attack chance. Then we go to the bottom and get everything starting with the melee critical hit until the Maddening Excitement, and then once again go back to the middle and select everything from the Enfeebling Terror until the Sorrowful Silence. And now for the last and final build part we have the Guardians. These are special transformations that add offensive or defensive buffs or even special attacks to your character for 30 seconds. The best two choices is the Lady Knight Camartia. This Guardian lowers your cooldowns while also giving you a damage shield equal to 50% of your maximum mana. This is a strong defensive Guardian whenever you're struggling to survive. Or on the other hand, we have the Shade Remnant Steno. This Guardian launches projectiles every second that can crit and heavy attack. Since our build is great at both melee and long range, so this guy works perfectly for our playstyle. And now finally we have come to the gameplay part. You want to play mainly in melee range, and on stationary bosses, make sure that you don't move around too much so that you get the 100 heavy attack chance from the Aestheticism passive. So at the beginning of every fight, we start by using the Lightning Infusion, then High Focus, then Hellfire Rain, then Focused Fire Bombs, then Inferno Wave, then Ankle Strike, then Cleaving Moonlight, then Thunderclouds Bombing, and then you finish it off with a Fireball Barrage, and then we rinse and repeat. So in a quick summary, you must always be at melee range when fighting against bosses. You also want to always have 10 burn stacks. Achieving this 24/7 might be hard, unless you have really good cooldown speed, so try to focus on that as soon as you can. Then also, the Hellfire Rain and Inferno Wave skills can help you to refresh the debuffs on the enemies. On top of this, keep using the Fireball Barrage, a nice spear bombardment. This will easily keep giving you a high amount of Thundercloud stacks. And finally, always use the Cleaving Moonlight for additional attack speed buff. Just don't spend your second charge until the attack speed buff is about to expire, because using the skill twice in a row will consume the buff itself. And that's about it.